I'm sold for it.
10 and relax. Nice.
Oh, what a difference.
Yeah. So nice.
Oh,
Every day is good.
holiday for me is going super down.
I hope it's better weather for the rest of your spring break. Yeah. Of course, no going outside yesterday, was there? Unless you went out to. I was drowned. Wait,
Good afternoon. It's 3:15, and I would like to call the special meeting of council to order, March 25th, 2025. And I would also like to acknowledge that we are having this meeting on the unceded territory of the Squamish Nation. I'm Anne Marie De Andrade, Deputy Mayor, and I will be the chair of this meeting because the mayor is away. So I would like to seek approval of the agenda. Councilor Crowe, second by Councilor Thompson. All in favor? Thank you. So our second item is adoption of minutes of the regular council meeting, March 18, 2025. Moved by Councilor Thompson, second by Councilor Crowe. All in favor? Thank you. And now we have item 4, the bylaws. Rates, fees, and charge amendment by law number 1196-25, 2025, and for adoption. So I don't know if council has any question, or you're just moving. Councilor Crowe just moved, second by Councilor Thompson. Any question to staff? All in favor? Against? Okay, thank you. And moving to 4.2, 672 North Road Housing Agreement by Law number 1330, 2025. And the recommendation is that the 672 North Road Housing Agreement be adopted. Moved by Councilor Crowe? No? Okay.
Can move.
Yes. I'm looking for a seconder. I'll second. So any question? Okay, Councilor Crowe, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The only question I have, and in the agreement, there was a parking variance, and with respect to that parking variance, the developer was going to be providing either a vehicle or enter a car share agreement. So I didn't see any reference to that in what we're looking at, and maybe I'm just having a senior's moment, and because I remember us discussing it at the last meeting, but I'm just wondering how that is being addressed.
Director of Planning.
Thank you, Deputy Chair, or Deputy Mayor, sorry. So yes, this is a housing agreement, and it's specifically to regulate the rental housing and the type of housing. So it doesn't speak to the variance. So the separate process for the parking reduction and the height was done through the development variance permit.
Thank you, Director. Any other question? Okay, I will call all in favor. Any opposed? Are you opposed?
No.
Oh, okay, in favor. Okay, all in favor. Thank you. Okay, moving to the next item, development cost charge by law number 1329, 2025. And that be given, the recommendation is that it be given first, second, and third reading. So does anyone have a question to staff? Okay, it was moved by Councillor Thompson and second by Councillor Crowe. Okay, Councillor Lumley.
I'm sorry, but I was just I had a question regarding the last, I know it's passed and everything, but it's irrelevant to it passing. Could I, through you, could I ask, like, procedural wise, because I know the mayor's not here, and Councillor Thompson and I both voted against the variance, which wasn't part of the housing agreement. But my question is that, I mean, I guess, I don't know what the right adjective would be, but I mean, I voted for the housing agreement, even though I was against the variance. Now, what would have happened if I would have voted against, say that we voted against the housing agreement? What would the next step be? Because it wouldn't pass because the mayor's not here. So that's my question. That just was in my head, and I know we've moved on, but I wondered if I could ask that question. Maybe staff could answer what would have happened in that case where the housing agreement gets killed.
Yeah, no problem. It is a good question, and I think our corporate officer can answer. May try.
It would not be adopted. It would return either for a revision or a new bylaw to come forward in a separate writing, or it would be the death of its adoption right there.
Thanks.
Okay, so I think CEO, do you agree, right, or do you have any comment?
Through acting chair, it's not a question that I disagree. Is that the agreement was prepared because there was a resolution of council that, as part of the approval of this project, included entering into this agreement. So I'm not so sure that the agreement is dead just because this version didn't get adopted by council, because council has already a previous motion that says we're to enter into an agreement. And this is the agreement, so I think it has to be material. So in what form kind of raises questions about the previous approval in a different form, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lumley, are you satisfied? Do you have more questions?
Yeah, I don't think it would, obviously, like, it would be the wrong thing to do to try and, like, kill the project based on a housing agreement. I'm just wondering, in the process, like you're missing someone, that was the question, is we're missing someone that voted for it, and now you're sitting with 4 people on council today, bringing forward something that's attached to it, essentially, that, you know, I guess you could have just waited until the mayor got back, I would imagine, to bring the housing agreement forward. But, I mean, not that we would do that to try and kill the thing, but it was just a process question for me, that's all, because somebody was missing.
Thank you. So going. Okay, corporate officer.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I appreciate the CAO bringing that up because you are still obligated then to proceed with your former resolution. It has to be carried through by staff. This bylaw would not have passed adoption, but something would need to come forward that would satisfy that resolution. So I appreciate that comment.
Thank you, corporate. So going back to the development cost charge by law number 1329, 2025, be given first, second, and third reading. Moved? Moved by Councillor Crowe. Oh, we already moved. Okay, second by Councillor Thompson. And any question? All in favor? It passed. Thank you. Administration's reports. Director of Infrastructure Service, Canada Housing Infrastructure Grant Application, Ocean Outfall Replacement, and we have recommendations, but I would ask the director to present the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll keep it fairly brief. This is a grant application administered through the federal government for housing-related infrastructure needs. So really the key is looking for infrastructure improvements that will increase the number of serviceable units, whether it be in a neighborhood or, in this case, this would increase servicing for the entire town. We have a design report from Urban Systems that was prepared earlier this year, recommending sizing for replacement of the outfall. That would service a population of roughly 15,000 people. It was done, that sizing analysis was done through the strategic sanitary plan that we received last year, which aligns with kind of an OCP-based build-out. We anticipate that with the new OCP update, it'll be within the same range. And there's an alternate recommendation for sizing where we explored what a reasonable maximum size would be. And without getting into the too technical details, there's kind of a limit on the physical size of the pipe that we could reasonably do. That would service a population of upwards of 26,000. So while that's beyond, I think, what anybody would anticipate for a build out of the town, given the age of the pipe itself, the material would have a 75-year lifespan. Thinking, beyond 20 years out to 50, 60 years in the future, unknown exactly what the town might look like at that point in time. There also may be opportunities for servicing agreements that would extend beyond the town boundary. So hypothetically, there could be servicing that would extend out to portions of the regional district. And the additional capacity would provide some long-term flexibility for the town. The cost difference is marginal, and when you split that in half from the grant application, the cost difference from the kind of the 20-year growth horizon, or you could call that the town build-out horizon, would be $3.2 million, would be the town's portion of the project cost. The oversized one, which would provide kind of growth for the full lifespan of the asset, would be a total project cost of closer to $8 million. So the town's contribution would be the 3.93 that's identified in the report. Given the relatively low cost increase from that upsizing, it's staff's recommendation to go with the oversized for just the long-term flexibility, but certainly would be supportive of with the application with the smaller diameters to support functional town build-out. So if there's any additional questions, staff's here, but I think that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Director. Questions? Councillor Thompson.
So with the two different piping scenarios, do they have the same lifespan? Is that a fair question?
Through the Deputy Mayor, yeah, the material would be the same. It's just different. It would be basically increasing the diameter of the gravity main. So the alignment and the location of the outfall, the lifespan would be the same. It's just the diameter and therefore the capacity of it.
Councillor Lumley.
Yeah, through the Deputy Mayor, I know the report, it says future capital costs. I wondered just in light of the way things are right now with costs and a lot of uncertainty with costs to go in the future. If at any point, I guess during this process, there must have been. I know, like I said, it says future, but is this cost what is going to cost it in the future, or is this like kind of more of a current cost that we have to be concerned about, like an increase in costs, if there's any contingency or any plans in case, some things as they do now get like really expensive very fast. That was my question.
Yeah, thanks for the question. That was my concern as well. So I'll seek maybe an answer from the director. Perhaps he has some good horizon for us to relax, because I'm concerned as well with all the expenses coming.
Thanks. And through the Deputy Mayor, if I had a crystal ball that could tell what construction industry costs are going to be over the next few years, I'd probably have a different job. But I think there's the costs that we've provided are $2025. We see the need for replacing that outfall, regardless of future growth. There is a need to provide some kind of short-term growth as well. So this is something that's very much it was in the 5-year capital plan, identified as a 27-28 project, and that's kind of dependent mostly on permitting as opposed to financial. Like it's something that's in stream and will be coming forward in over the course of the next several budget years as far as when that first hit would be. Cost escalation from now to then, there's so much uncertainty that it would be hard to project. We do have that cost base in 2025, and there is I'd have to double check the estimate that we received from the engineers, but my expectation is that it's a 40% contingency. For that kind of high level costing, there's a substantial contingency gets placed just for uncertainty in general that generally would come up in design. Common practice would indicate that would be enough for market uncertainty as well, but obviously there's a exceptional market uncertainty at this point. So certainly it could be an option to increase the contingency and apply for more grant funding. And generally the way that grant funding works is you kind of get reimbursed as you spend. So if we were to say the town were to get $8 million in grant funding and the project would be $7 million, we just wouldn't use the remaining portion, right? So the cost would get scaled based on what the actual construction costs are. So one option would be to increase the contingency in the grant application, and that might give us a bit of flexibility so that we have a buffer where we would have grant funds available if there are compounding international trade issues that might drive up costs. The material is PVC. It would generally be coming from, I think that the states are a big provider of PVC, so I'm not sure what other alternatives would be.
Thank you. I'll go back to you. Just on that note, would the increasing taxes that council approved, like the 10%, will be part of this recovery through the 10%, or this is completely independent?
Without the Director of Finance here to answer that question directly, how's that for timing?
Let him settle first. I'll go to, okay, Councilor Lumley, I think you have a follow-up question. So.
Yeah, I can appreciate the response. I think it's quite clear. And what I would suggest to council, and we could work with finance department, is probably, developing a model or some sort of, because every business right now is dealing with this, right? Like even if there's no tariffs on PVC right now, you might as well assume that there will be, because it doesn't matter. Everyone's increasing their costs, even if they're not tariffed. It's happening to me in my business. It's just the environment that it's unfortunately that we're living in today. It's people aren't missing out on increasing, getting money, making money. That I would probably suggest that as a council, and I mean we're going into budget, we should probably talk about some sort of like modeling that can help us so that if it does go up by 30 or 40%, the council in the future is not stuck making a huge decision. And you'd think it would be, if you're applying and receiving a grant, you'd think that even at the top level, the federal government would be saying, okay, like if you're actually building this in 2028, I mean, maybe this grant isn't enough. And that was kind of part and parcel of my question, was that it should come from all sources of government, not just hey, I got a grant, 5 years later it's 40% of what it's going to cost. Well, too bad, that's on you. It seems a bit unfair, but anyway.
Director of Finance.
Yes, I can confirm that the senior governments are more than happy to be unfair. If we are lucky enough to be awarded this, the contract that the town will subsequently sign will say that that the town will make good on any shortfall in the construction budget that enables the construction of the promised project. And I've been through this before. So for example, there were a ton of projects out there financed with federal, provincial, ISIP grant money. The projects rolled along. After COVID, there was a huge bump up in construction costs, and the local governments had to find the difference. There was no top up from the federal or provincial governments. I would think it would be the same thing this time.
Thank you. Councillor Crowe. Oh, Director, okay, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just to follow on that, I think fully would agree with that. There's generally with grant provider, there's no going back to say, can we have a bit more to finish this? I would expect the federal government would not be surprised to see grant applications that have a higher than typical contingency to reflect the market uncertainty, and I would hope that they would not look at that as an indication of incompleteness of the application or incompleteness of the scoping, and rather just a reflection. And that could be a comment that would be included. So if there's direction from council to increase the contingency, that could be communicated. Likely there would be an opportunity to explain the rationale of that in the grant application.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Councillor Crowe, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And this is, this is probably a delve into the archives question. Back when Wakefield was looking at doing a development with the Sechelt Nation, or Squamish Nation, on the Chuckwalk Bandlands, the town had an agreement with them that we would give them access to sewage. It would, and I don't recall, was that actually a formal agreement, or was it just sort of a, yeah, if you develop, we'll grant you the access? But that potentially could be, a huge addition to the load on the load on our sewage treatment plant, exclusive of what our population at the time was. So, I'm sort of in agreement with what staff are suggesting about, building the larger potential within the system. But the fallback question would be if we got the grant funding for the larger, and then as we got closer to putting a shovel in the ground, it was like, oh my God, the cost of this, we can only do this. Would you be able to use the grant money to proceed with a smaller diameter pipe if that was the stumbling block in the whole project?
Please, Director.
Thank you, through the Deputy Mayor. That would be certainly a conversation we'd have to reach out to the contact through the grant provider. It depends on how their analysis of the project compared to other projects that they were reviewing. Essentially, they're gonna have some metrics that they're looking for when they could make their decisions about who to award these grants to. I imagine there's a lot of interest across the country in these type of housing-related, growth-related infrastructure improvements. If their metric really is just the number of units created and are the opportunities for units that the infrastructure creates, and if it's just a analytical and 11,000 more units means this one was awarded, they may be less open to a pivot to a reduced size. But that's very speculative. I just know that part of the grant criteria is looking at increasing growth opportunities. So would assume that the capacity would be part of their consideration.
Please, Councillor.
And just follow up to the initial part of the question about our relationship with the nation with respect to access to our sewage treatment.
CAO.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, we don't have an agreement for that. We discussed that potentiality. There was a draft service agreement which would have outlined the terms. So we have recently discussed that with the nation when they were here a few months ago to discuss their future plans for the site. So we anticipate we'll have the conversation again. Hence our motivation to recognize that on top of our future growth, there's opportunities, perhaps. There's some of these unknowns. We don't know the timing, if it's in 5 years or 10 years, but we essentially, there's more cost. I would say the inflation question applies to both costs, whether it's the lower pipe and we do get, for a little bit more money, we get more pipe and more service, because once we build it, we can't add it, even if we don't use it in the first little while. We would strongly, I think we would prefer to have a bit more pipe in the ground for that perspective.
Thank you. I have a few questions for the Director of Finance. First of all, can we recover this through DCCs? And also, these expenses, I know we recently increased the 10% over 5 years. At least this is the plan. I know it's going to be revised next year, but would this 10% be, okay, he's already laughing. I don't like that. Okay, so the 10% increase has nothing to do with that.
Yes, Deputy Mayor, absolutely, this project, especially if it's the bigger version, DCCs should be a consideration for the funding, and we haven't isolated how much that would be, but it would be a significant part of the bigger one. And on the flip side, the only way for the town to be coming up with other funds is from the sewer reserve. And the whole reason for the 10% increases is not for increases in operating costs. It's all about building up the capital funding we have available. So if that 10% were to see its course for 5 years, along with DCCs, that would put the town in a position to be able to do the bigger project without having to get involved in debt. If we didn't have any DCC money and we didn't escalate the annual rates, and we won this big award for the bigger project, we would immediately have to start seeking approval of additional debt, which isn't quite how we plan to do additional debt in the sewer utility. I hope that's helpful. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here.
Thank you. Okay, so just to be clear, this will not generate more taxations like the policing will generate taxation. This will increase, obviously, the sewage rates, but I know this, well, the sewage right now is through taxation, I guess, but the direction is to separate that, to create their own program. Can you navigate us with, I think the comments from Councilor Lumley, and I believe Council, we are all concerned with future tax increase, giving policing costs and giving all the costs and giving the slow economy and perhaps even a recession coming. So it's great when you said that increasing the capital reserve would maybe offset this, but can you be a little bit more, expand on the subject so we can understand like the current taxation that we are going through this year, the following year, and policing, which will be soon, probably.
So Deputy Mayor, just to stay focused on this project as a whole, let's say the bigger version of this project got the big grant and the DCC money and the money out of the sewer capital reserve covered the town's share. It's all capital money going into a capital project. This particular project isn't something that, because it's a pipe and an outfall in the ocean, wouldn't increase the operating costs of that sewer utility. So from that perspective, this big project, as important as it is, doesn't have any impact on the operating cost for sewer. If you substantially increase the size of the sewer plant, now that's going to cost more to operate. That would have an impact on utility rates, the sewer utility rate. But this one is neutral. In terms of the overall picture, well, the utilities, the demands for capital funding are such that that's the only thing driving increases of rates there. Otherwise, the operating costs are pretty stable and at this time not requiring much in the way of increases. And then on the municipal side, well, that's another matter. And yes, the RCMP is a key factor there. So it's almost as though in the utilities, we're worried about having enough money, enough capital funding. And over in the municipal side right now, we're worried about having enough money for the RCMP. But slowly but surely, the town is moving in the right direction. So in a few years, we should have the better answers on all of that. It's just that it's not possible to do nothing and wait a few years to see what the answers are. We at least have to head in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crowe?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We know we've got to replace this outfall line, whether it's a 6-inch pipe or a 12-inch pipe. So in light of that, and I would certainly like to move option 2, that we go for the bigger pipe, that if it has the projected longevity, that it gives us infinite flexibility. And there's even situations were there to be an issue with the pipe in the future, because it's a larger pipe, there are situations where you can actually insert a new pipe through the old pipe and potentially repair a problem. So I think staff have advised us that with their recommendation for option 2, so I would like to move that.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Crowe. Do we have a seconder? Second by Councillor Thompson. I'll go to Mr. Lumley. Do you feel comfortable? I know because you have the accountant background and you think better sometimes in terms of finances, and so you feel comfortable with the decision. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, my apologies for coming to the meeting late. Just on the nature of the budgeting for this project, we are working with Urban and specialists in this area. And of course, one of the big things on their mind right now is, what could happen? What are the possibilities with the tariffs? So we are relying on them to come up with the broad estimate for the project to take into account as best they can what that amount is likely to be.
Thank you. And okay, so let's pass this, and then we make the recommendation for the staff to increase contingency. I think is also an important recommendation. So let's vote on the recommendation now. All in favor? Opposed? No one opposed? Okay. So I would move that staff increase the contingency. And right now, the director mentioned 40%. Are we thinking 50, 60, or just a little bit 45? Just to have an idea. Thank you.
Class D is the weakest estimate we could provide, and that has 50.
I can clarify that through the deputy mayor. So currently there's a 40% contingency. I've been able to find the direct quote. So there's a 40% contingency on all costs on the dry land portion of it, with 10% allowance for engineering. For the marine portion, there's a 50% contingency and 20% allowance for engineering and environmental and permitting, which would be typical. We could apply a 50% contingency on all construction elements just to add a little bit of additional security, and that would be, as the Director of Finance raised, in line with engineering standard cost estimate classes, and would certainly not raise any questions through the grant provider. So that would be the recommendation. Going anything beyond 50% would be potentially, could cause questions at the grant provider level, and would be recommended against.
Perfect. So should we say 50% or just we say that staff increase contingency? And
I believe, sorry, through the deputy mayor, if I may, that the grant application will likely look for a resolution with the specific number.
okay, so let's say 50%.
So I'll have to do some math to give you, because we'll need a number that says the town supports, and with it, some grant applications are different, but there are some, without being able to pull the whole application up right now, they need a resolution from council that'll say we support a grant application of, and they want to see the specific dollar amount. And so I'll just have to, if I can have 30 seconds to do the math, I should be able to
No problem.
clarify what that number is.
Okay.
May have been exaggerating with speed. I wish I'm going to do this. It's maybe a question for the corporate officer. Just in the interest of not wanting to have a mathematical error and just make sure that we're getting the correct number, is there any way procedurally that we could just push this back, get through the rest of the business, and then resolve the actual number?
This particular item can be tabled until later in the meeting, and then you can pick it up off the table after you've dealt with the other items on the agenda.
Perfect. So we will table this item and we'll proceed and we'll come back to this specific item. Thank you, corporate officer. So the next item is the centrifuge equipment installation contract award, and the recommendation is that a contract be awarded to CHB Services in the amount of $325,600 for the installation of the centrifuge equipment. And Director, would you like to present the report?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think you pretty well said everything that I would have said. So this is just the last stage. The centrifuge itself was purchased in 2024, and it's slated to arrive in about 7 weeks.
Oh, okay, moved by Councilor Thompson, second by Councilor Crowe. I have a question. Since we're talking about contingency, I wonder if it was just a typo, because on the chart on the table on page 54 of the agenda, it says contingency 30% of construction, but then on the text, it said that the 80,000 is 25% contingency. So just in case was a typo, but it seems that it's important to have the number correct. Do you?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, that table was just not updated when the contingency was recalculated. So thank you for catching that.
So it's actually 25.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor? Oh, the recommendation. For the centrifuge, yeah, we already moved and seconded. Okay, all in favor? Thank you, it passed. So the item 5.3, it's a supply of Glassford Road Box Culvert Contract Award, and we have a recommendation, and Director of Infrastructure would like to present as well the report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just briefly, this is just a pre-purchase, given the long lead time for fabrication. It was recommended to pre-purchase the culverts so that if we're able to secure the environmental permits required to do work in the creek in 2025, that we'd be able to do so. And the worst thing that would happen is that they would sit at our public works yard for 10 months and be installed in 2026. So there's no downside to getting ahead of the purchase.
Thank you. So question for, are you asking a question or you're moving, Councillor Crowe?
No, the only thing I would say is I approve the, with the economic environment we're currently dealing with, that staff are being proactive in securing materials for projects we know we're going to have to deal with. So I'll move the recommendation as proposed.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Crowe, second by Councillor Thompson. Any more questions? All in favor? It passed. So hopefully the Director of Infrastructure is ready with no, not yet? Oh, thank you. Just corporate officer.
I suggest you take a recess until he has time.
Okay, so we'll have a recess. Thank you.
Rebecca's going to
last meeting. Okay, so the item we are talking about is 5.1, ocean outfall replacement. Council passed option 2 with the 2 recommendations, and we are working on the 3rd recommendation. And Director of Infrastructure, please give the magic number.
Thank you. Yes, so Deputy Mayor, the revised number with the 50% contingency and 20% allowance for engineering and permitting, which is what had been on the marine portion, and we're now applying that to the dry land portion. The revised cost is rounded to 8.4 million total cost, so an additional roughly $500,000. So the town's portion of that would be 4.2. So the revised recommendation would be that staff be directed to submit a grant application to the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund and the replacement of the ocean outfall sized per the 75-year growth scenario, and that $4.2 million be committed from the sanitary sewer utility to fund the town's portion of the project.
Okay, I'm glad you spoke, so we don't have to repeat. How's council feeling? Any question at this point? No? So I think I'll move. I think we need a seconder. Second by Councilor Lumley. All in favor? It passes. Thank you very much for your work.
Thank you for your patience.
No problem. So we are good, we are done. So our next meeting is our next regular meeting of council to be held on Tuesday, April 8, 2025 at 3:30 p.m. And the adjournment. So who is moved by Councilor Crowe, second by Councilor Thompson. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you.
This 8.4 includes all the detailed design that were detailed.